hi everyone, welcome. It's Richard Wade from Rural Crime Prevention, ruralcrimes.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Just before we start this recording, to let you know this is a pre-recorded and it will be going out after the end of the presentation. It will be going out onto LinkedIn and it will go onto our YouTube channel, which is Rural Crime Prevention and Farm Safety Training. And I would urge you, if you haven't done so already, please to pop over to that channel, Rural Crime Prevention and Farm Safety Training on YouTube. There'll be a link in the show notes. And if you don't mind, why not subscribe? Set the alert bell. And then when we do future chats like you're going to see in a moment, you can get an alert direct to your inbox. So you know when we're going to either go live or when a new recording is uploaded. So the channel's gaining quite a bit of momentum. We are very fortunate, like today, to have some wonderful guests coming on to share their experiences in rural crime. I'll introduce my guest in a moment, but that's the reach of the channel is dependent upon the number of people who subscribe and the interactions that you give us. So the YouTube algorithms will promote and push channels where there are increases of membership. So where people subscribe, that helps the algorithm think this is a website that people are interested in. And more importantly, are likes or dislikes. We haven't had any of those yet, but likes and comments, that also helps pushes out and widen the reach, really. So far, we've had people from all over the world. We've had people from Australia, New Zealand. We've had people from America recently when we had a chat with the guys from Sarah's Tag, and we're really grateful of everyone's time. And what I'm going to do now is introduce today's guest. So let me click a button, and appearing right there on our screen is Jono. Jono, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Rich. Yeah, very well. Thank you very much.
Well, Jono, as we said in the warm up there, just to let everyone else know, you know, this is not a scripted affair. This is just straight from the hip, and we'll go with the flow. But Jono, let me allow you to introduce yourself, please, as to who you are and a little bit about what you do, and then I'll bring up the presentation that you're going to take us through. So the floor is yours, Jono. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Rich. Hello, hi everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's a great opportunity. I'd just like to first start by thanking Rich for inviting me to talk about the subject I'm going to talk about, which is heritage crime. It's a bit of a passion of mine, as well as one of the roles that I look at while working for Cheshire Police. So my name's John Lightfoot, Jono Lightfoot, or full title is Jonathan Lightfoot, and I work for Cheshire Constabulary. I'm lucky enough to work for the rural crime team here in Cheshire, which is a brilliant team. I've only been on the team about 5 months, as I've recently transferred from West Mercia Police. So yeah, it's fantastic. And within that role, I am the Heritage Crime Officer, or one of them, and a National Tactical Advisor for Stone Theft, which is the code name of Operation Lithic.
Operation Lithic, I've heard a bit about that, and if we're allowed to, maybe we'll touch on that a bit later, Jono, as well, if that's all right. I'll bring your presentation up in a moment, John, but a couple of quick questions from myself, if I may, please. When it comes to heritage crime, you mentioned there you recently moved over 5 or 6 months ago from a different force. Were you doing a similar role there, or did you think, well, I want to get involved in what's going on over there in Cheshire? How did that work out?
Yeah, so it was an opportunity that rose. The sergeant in Cheshire is brilliant, so enthusiastic.
Shall we name him? Is his name Rob?
Yeah, Rob Simpson. He's been very very good with me, transferring over and allowing me to crack on with heritage crime stuff. Yes, that opportunity came up, and luckily enough, it all fell quite well. So
lovely. Oh, that has worked out really, really well then, and I'm aware. I'm sure it will come out in your presentation that it's a close knit team, but you're busy guys there, aren't you? You got a lot of stuff going on. Let me bring up your presentation, John, and then what I'll do is I'll hand the floor over to your good self, really. And you've obviously got control of the screen, and
Yes.
yeah. So let me give the floor to you, John. If there's any points where you want to stop and have a general chit chat, by all means, just let me know. But I'll let you crack on. But I think the key thing is who are you, what you're about, and what's going on in the heritage crime world at the moment. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, Rich, if there's any time you want me to stop and ask any questions, please feel free. Just keep that conversation going. It's easier for me as well. Helps me.
Sure thing.
Keep going as well. So brilliant. So as you can see, there's a nice picture of me there on the PowerPoint. It was taken earlier this year at the Battle of Nantwich reenactment, which is a really good engagement day that I was able to go out and speak to reenactors and other people, lovers of history, because heritage crime is effectively history, and how we protect it. So and then we've got the nice Heritage Watch logo, which I'll talk about a bit later. So moving on, is a bit my background, really. So you can see there, as a child, grew up loving history, and then when I was about 14, became a medieval reenactor, which I still do, and takes me all over the country. I've got some fantastic friends in that world, and it's something that's taken me to be a volunteer for English Heritage now as well, where I can dress up, which is great. But more importantly, so I joined the police in about 2015, where I worked, where I was initially posted in Telford. And then moved to a place called Bridge North as the Safe and Neighbourhood Officer, and then in December I became a Rural and Business Crime Officer, where that's where my journey of learning about heritage crime pretty much started, really. And then I was able to do the Heritage Crime Officer training back when I was with West Mercia Police, which I was very lucky, which was led by Mark Harrison, who's the head of heritage crime for Historic England. Talk about him a bit later on.
Yeah.
Then December 2024, transferred over to Cheshire's rural crime team, like I said earlier, and then January 2025, Mark Harrison asked me if I'd become a national tactical advisor for the historic stone theft, which is the Lithic, and that sits within the National Police Chief Council's Heritage Crime Working Group, which is run across the country.
Well, that's very interesting. If I can jump in, like you suggest, and ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a lot of new stuff there to me, and I just want to sort of get us to chat a little bit wider about that. So the role with Mark Harrison, then, did you say from Historic England?
Yes.
And he's providing the training. Does that training go across all police forces? There was about 43 police forces in the UK. And does that training go into all of them?
Yeah, so all of them that are in England, obviously Historic England cover England, and then you have CADU that look after Wales.
Yeah.
We have lots of crossovers, because obviously here in Cheshire we border Wales, and so does when I was in West Mercia, they cover the border as well there. So there are crossovers, and we do speak. But yeah, most police forces in England will have a heritage crime officer now, which is good. It's become a lot more noticeable throughout the country. And later this year at the Emergency Services Show, we've got a stall there.
Oh, right. Okay.
Talking about heritage crime, and that's in conjunction with Historic England and the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists. They've got a special interest group now for heritage crime, which is really good.
Well, that'll be really good. That's going to raise that profile, isn't it? And get you right out there. Do we talk about Lithic now? Because that's piqued my interest, or shall we? Does that come up later?
We'll come up. We'll move on.
Okay.
That'll come up. I
Okay.
promise. I won't give you two in it. Suspense.
Yeah, good man.
So just a fun little slide next, and just a few photographs of me reenacting in some of my costumes.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I've got various different ones there. From see a nice young photograph of me of walking through the streets of Shrewsbury to more recent ones. So as you can see, I've changed quite a bit. Anyway, so I'll just talk a little bit about the team I'm on that I feel very lucky to be a part of, which was launched back in October 2019. And Cheshire is 67% of it is rural, so we have a lot of rural places in Cheshire, and it was created to tackle crime, which was previously quite underreported, very much like heritage crime is now. It's very underreported, heritage crime, rural crime, as more and more knowledge is shared on all sorts of different platforms. The increase in calls is good because we're getting to know about it, and it's also reflecting on the good work that my team does. So we tend to investigate wildlife crime. So I'm a wildlife crime officer as well.
Yeah.
We've got officers on the team who specialise in different types of wildlife crime, but we're all trained in that. Rural crimes, that encompasses theft from farms, other types of theft from rural communities, also encompasses environmental crimes, so like fly tipping. That's also something we do. We do quite a lot of work with local authorities as well, and joint operations to target people doing that. And of course, heritage crime, which is what I like to think my specialty is in. We do a lot of close working with partner agencies, and we are very much a proactive led team where we act on intelligence, and we very much targeted policing, which is good. But we also like to engage with our rural community and increase that confidence in them, which I've certainly noticed in Cheshire is quite good. Our social media profile on Facebook is got quite a lot of followers, and people like to see what we're doing, out and about doing. So that's good. So we'll move on to what heritage crime is. Historic England and the National Police Chiefs Council Special Interest Group for Heritage Crime have come up with this official definition. So I'll just read it for you. So heritage crime is any offence which harms the value of heritage assets and their settings. So if you notice, there's quite an important bit where this is any offence. So it literally can be anything.
Pretty wide, yeah.
That can be used, that can be targeted in that offence. So some heritage assets are protected by specific legislation to prevent harm caused by or damage to unlicensed alteration. Other crimes such as theft, criminal damage, arson, antisocial behaviour can also damage and harm heritage assets and interfere with the public's enjoyment and knowledge of their heritage. So as you can see there, it's quite a wide definition. It is good that we've got that definition. And it's quite helpful because beforehand we didn't have that definition, so it was very much of a guessing game. But now that's made it a lot more streamlined, so we know what we're working with.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I must raise at this point that heritage crime is still very fresh within the policing world. It's got a lot better over the last few years, but it is still fresh. When I joined the police, it's almost 10 years ago now, I had no idea what heritage crime was. I didn't even know it was a thing. Even with my keen interest in history, I didn't even know that heritage crime existed. I knew crime happened at historic places and things like that. Of course, it's going to the crime happens everywhere, but I didn't know it was had a label. So obviously later on in my career, when I discovered that it was a thing, it was something that was obviously quite close to my heart that I wanted to try and make a difference in. So it's literally that's all fell nicely together really. And, which on the flip side, it is a bit of a barrier because of your core officers, so your main officers that deal with your 999 calls and your normal reports that you get, unfortunately won't have the knowledge, because in basic training, heritage crime as well as wildlife crime are not widely, they don't receive inputs on it, which is something that we're trying to change. Certainly something I'm talking to here in Cheshire. I'm talking to the training school about delivering an input to new recruits, just so that they've got that basic knowledge when they go out into the public. If they get deployed to a heritage crime, they know a little bit of what it is. Which in turn will help my job, because obviously I don't work 24 hours a day. We're on a shift pattern, so we are on duty, and if that heritage crime is, we will deploy to it. But when we're not on, it's a case of the officers on duty will go to it.
Of course,
So the assets that are considered to have a value of heritage in England are obviously your listed buildings. So that's your grade 1 listed, and your grade 2 star, and your grade 2. Obviously your grade 1 have the most protections, because that obviously controls the change of the building from the outside and internally. Grade 2 very similar to grade 1, and then your grade 2 star, your grade 2 is very much just the outside of the property. Your scheduled monuments, so there are lots of those across the country. You'll be surprised if you were to look on the map of England, which Historic England have created, which has every one of those points in England. It's fascinating. Once you get on that map, you're not off it for a good few hours. You start looking and you find new things all the time. It's really handy for us as police, because if we get deployed to an incident, we can quickly open up our phone, open the map up, and it shows you what site you're at and what protections it's got, which is really handy. So scheduled monuments are very much, they can range from a castle to a barrow, which is usually a small little hill in a field, or a bit of woodland, which there's nothing to see, but it's still scheduled, which is got some protections, to just a field which you can't see anything, and it's, to the untrained eye, it's nothing. There's nothing there, but it's still got the protection. So as soon as you start digging in there without the right consent, it's a criminal damage, and it's a damage to scheduled monument, which falls part under the archaeological area. So a lot of people don't know that, so we'll cover a little bit more of that, and then move on a bit later. So you've got your World Heritage Sites, which come under that, where there's quite a few in England, in Wales and Scotland. So I think not so much what I deal with, because here in Cheshire we've got a little bit of estuary and rivers, but nothing that's certainly got any protected marine wreck sites on. I know there's officers on the south coast who are doing a lot of work protecting marine wreck sites, which is really, really good work from them. And then you move down to conservation areas, registered parks and gardens, then registered battlefields, protected military remains of aircraft and vessels. So obviously during World War II, there was a lot of planes downed during the various air battles that we had over Britain. They are covered by the protected military remains Act, which prevent people from stealing items from them. It happens. You have people who like to go up onto mountainous areas where there's not going to be many people about, and they'll decide to steal bits of metal and bits of things from them. So how do we protect those as well? You've also got the undesignated but acknowledged heritage buildings and sites. So those are historical buildings which are not yet listed or not have got any protections, but are recognised as a historical importance. So they're under this definition as well. But also recently, cultural property. So historical artifacts, boats, some trains, and more recently, which was quite in the press regularly, the Sycamore Gap, the tree. That comes under that one. Obviously, you've got Hadrian's Wall, which is a scheduled monument, which is what the tree was felled onto, which would have been damaged in the process. But that cultural property, that tree is world famous. You can see how far that news story reached across the country, and the officers who investigated that, just want to fair play to them. They've done a cracking job there.
It was massive.
So that's that really, in terms of the definition. We've got any questions?
I have got a couple of points actually. That's really fascinating, because that I didn't realise that's the scope of it. And the one that piqued my, as soon as you said that, I thought I'll make a note of that. People could quite easily be digging up a field and not realise it. I immediately started thinking of metal detectors and these people who go wandering around, who are probably unaware when they start digging, or perhaps landowners and farmers, you could actually be committing a crime without knowing. Which then links back to the resource that you mentioned from Historic England, the website. I'm gonna make sure I find that and put it in the show notes, because that sounds really, really interesting. I'm sure people would love to, I was unaware of that. So some real great info's come out of that, Jono. Absolutely, that's brilliant. Thanks for that.
Good, no problem. Yeah, so we'll move on now, and we'll look at the different types of heritage crime that we see quite regularly. Now, Historic England and the National Police Chiefs Council have come up with a list of priorities that we look at. So if you look at the National Wildlife Crime Unit, they set their priorities of the types of wildlife crime that they want us, the police, to be focusing on and targeted on. Same with the National Agricultural Vehicle Theft Team, they've got their priorities as well. So Heritage Crime Working Group have kind of followed suit, and then we've created our own priorities, which we'll cover over the next few slides.
Lovely, yeah.
But yeah, so the slides you can see there is just going to cover some of the different types of heritage crime that I've come across, and some of the, it will show you some of the signs and symptoms to look at for if you're out and about, which is one of my biggest pleas really to the public who might be watching this. I think I alluded to it earlier that heritage crime is still massively underreported. It's very much, there's different issues of why people don't report it, why some people think the police won't want to know about that, they're too busy. Which is, no, we're not, we are busy, as you can probably tell, but we want to know about it. If we don't know about it, we don't know it's happening, so how can we combat it effectively? So it's very much, we need those reports coming in to be able to act and to prevent these people from damaging our heritage, really, because our heritage doesn't just belong to the landowners, the guardians of that site. It belongs to everybody. It's our learning. It's where we've come from. And if we miss on something that is discovered and it's stolen, there's no way of learning from that. It would hold a vital piece, because we're always learning. Every day there's new discoveries, which we need to try and safeguard these things. So we'll look at it, stone theft. So we'll go to Lithic first. So stone theft, it's very much an organised crime thing. We know they very much do their research. They, as much as the map that Historic England have created is good for us, it can also be used by criminals, unfortunately. We know they do their research. They know things are stolen to order. So, for example, the photographs that we've got there. So you have Shrewsbury Abbey in Shrewsbury, which is a Norman abbey which was built just after the Norman conquest in 1066. Massive building, stunning building. It's beautiful. In the grounds across the road, so Thomas Telford decided to build a road through it, and opposite in the car park there is the original pulpit, which we think is from the 14th century.
Wow.
There was around the middle or around the bottom, you can see that there are the stone panels which depict different saints. One day we received a report that the middle one was missing. So we went and visited, and it had been cut out of place. It'd been cut out, and it had been dropped out as there was remains on the floor underneath it. Now, luckily, just up the road from there is the Heritage Railway, which some of the grounds cover where the pulpit is now. Luckily, they managed to find it. It was hidden in some bushes.
Right.
Now, that could be. There's two ways that we could either look at this. It could be someone was messing about, removed it, and then hid it, or more than likely, which I think is it was stolen and then hidden nearby because they know the police are going to be there. We're going to react to it. We're going to patrol that area for X amount of days into weeks to make sure nothing else, the remaining panels aren't stolen. As we know with rural crime, quite often quad bikes and things. Agricultural vehicles are stolen, but then hidden in woods nearby, not too far away, to see if there's a tracker on them. If there's no trackers on them, they'll come back in a few weeks' time to try and to carry on with the theft. So luckily, we were able to recover it. Initially, it was valued at about £20,000. However, after doing a lot of research with Historic England and Shropshire Council, it was discovered that it was a replica, luckily, and the real ones are in the Shrewsbury Museum, protected, which is really, really good. So a good outcome that we were able to recover it, and it's now protected, and works being put in place to repair it and put it back. But on the flip side, it would have been nice to catch people who were doing it. So we held various different crime prevention meetings with inspectors from Historic England, from the council, and looked at the way the plants are overgrown, so to cut them down so it increases the how visible it is. You can see it from the road now. More street lighting, so that increases the chance of being seen if you are in there. The gate's locked, so you can't get in anyway. So anyone climbing over, that's going to be arising suspicion anyway, and potential CCTV to cover that area. Just because you're getting all sorts of things in there, antisocial behaviour as well, so graffiti as well being drawn on the pit as well. So it's a bit of a target, but I like to think that's reduced now due to it. But there's other examples of stone theft, so it's not just decorative bits like that. You have
Oh, yeah.
So churches are targeted quite often. So obviously churches are quite tranquil, quiet places, readily open for people to go and have a wander around the churchyards, and quite a lot of historic stone in there. As you can see, you've got gravestones can be stolen. Why anyone would want to steal them, I don't know. And pathways, which York stone is the most popular
Right.
stone to be stolen, just purely for the fact that it comes with a pretty price on it. It can be sold on, and there's no trace of it where it's gone.
Right. Yeah.
It's so, which is something we're trying to work on here. In Cheshire, which I'll talk about a bit later on, but something really exciting is happening with Chester University to do with stone theft, which is really good, which we'll come to a bit later.
Oh, lovely. Okay, cool.
You got any questions on stone?
Well, not so much questions, more observations that, you know, how low do people stoop stealing gravestones? You know, that's pretty horrific, really. But is the value in that, is that, are gravestones being stolen for because they have an intrinsic value? Is that York stone that then can be used and sold on? Or
yeah, I mean, we don't really 100% know why a gravestone. I don't understand why you. I mean,
it's weird, isn't it? It's odd.
The older the gravestone, sometimes the prettier they are. Some people like to have a nice stone in their garden which they can turn around and engrave on the back of. So it's all that kind of avenue of what we can look at, but we've got to look at the impact it has on the families of the people who that gravestone belongs to. Again, with the headstones and the footways and the paths that are removed from church. We had my colleague here in the Cheshire team before I arrived prosecuted two people from stealing the pathways of a church in Asprey, I believe, just outside Macclesfield, Compton, that kind of area of Cheshire.
Sure.
We were able to prosecute them, and they've been in prison, which is really good.
Good, because the impact's big, isn't it? You know,
it is.
Someone they steal a gravestone that could be 100 years old. You can put a new one in, but it's kind of irreplaceable, isn't it? You know, and you mentioned the impacts on like families and generations. That's a nightmare. Absolutely, that's horrendous. It really is.
It's like I say, it's a sentimental value that you can't replace, and they probably, specifically the gravestones, like you said, they could be there for at least 100 years, maybe older. And removing that from that setting, it's set now, it's weathered. As soon as you remove it, you could potentially damaging the protected layer that it's got on it anyway, and it'll, any weathering that it has got now, it will start to crumble and damage it even more. So it's so we'll move on to the next one. So that was Operation Lithic, which is one of the priorities. The next one is illegal metal detecting, so Operation Kronos. So at this point, I must stress that the majority of metal detectorists are law-abiding. They are really proud of their hobby. They do a fantastic job, effectively finding things that help us learn from our past. So that is the majority. Like in most organisations, hobbies, and stuff, we have a few bad eggs who do it outside of the law, and this is usually when metal detecting they enter land as a trespasser. So people think that they are entering the land as a trespasser, so that becomes a civil matter. However, if they're metal detecting and they're metal detecting on that land, they are effectively going equipped to steal, because they are stealing from the landowner. Which is a lot of things that people don't think of really.
No, exactly. That's
think-
fascinating. It really is fascinating. But yeah, no, it makes perfect sense though.
You've got the article in your hand, which is assisting you to find things which you are going to take. You're not going to find something, then go and see the landowner and say, "I've found this on your land."
Yeah.
The landowner's going to either report you or tell you where to go, type of thing. And it's it's that stress thing is what we need to get across to people, because detectors you can buy from anywhere. I mean, I was in an outdoor store not so long ago, and they're there on the shelf, and you can buy them. There's no register that you need to go on. You can buy them online. You don't. It's advised that you sign up to the various organisations, various different groups, but you don't have to. You can just go off. Now, at this point, I must say it's scheduled. Oh, sorry, pressing the button here. Scheduled monuments, it's a zero tolerance for metal detecting on there. You cannot detect on them. It's written in the Archaeological Areas Act that you cannot enter that site with a metal detector. It's just completely different. You need permission from the Secretary of State to metal detect on that land, which is never going to happen. Some archaeological digs, they struggle to get permission to do that. They eventually do get it, but it's so strict on those sites. And not only are you stealing the things that you find, as soon as you start digging, that's causing criminal damage to it as well.
Yeah, right.
So it's making people realise that, yes, you might be thinking you're just digging into a field so there's no victim, but no, there is a victim. You are effectively stealing from the nation. You are finding something that could be historically important, which could answer questions that we didn't know before, and it's that we need to get across to these people who want to do illegal metal detecting. We try to speak. Now we've got a really good volunteer for the Cheshire Rural Crime Team, Steve. He's brilliant and really helpful. He is a metal detectorist. He loves it. He goes out. He runs rallies. He's so good for us. He's working with Historic England as well with Mark. At educating detectorists. So they're coming up with creating a program for detectorists to educate them about illegal metal detecting and getting them to come forward with information for us, because there's so many groups on social media which are metal detectoring. I've noticed on TikTok now there's people who are out metal detecting all the time, finding their finds and things like that. There's video in it. How many of those people are officially declaring them? I don't know. It hurts my eyes really sometimes watching some of the videos.
I can imagine.
And it's just so we're doing bits of work with the British Museum as well. With you've got the Portable Antiquities scheme, who are the people who these items need to be declared to, who then decide whether it needs to go to the coroner to be declared as treasure, or whether where these items go to. So ways to spot illegal metal detecting is those similar to those photos that I've attached there. You've got you'll either have very nice round holes in the ground, or you'll get a very nice square one. Very rarely you'll get an untidy hole. With illegal metal detecting, they don't tend to replace the ground back as it was found. It's very much the rush thing, because they don't want to be caught. So it'll be dig a hole, find what's in there, onto the next one. With the law-abiding and official metal detectorists, they are very respectful of the land. They will replace the ground. So a good sign of illegal metal detecting. So if you're ever out visiting remains of a castle or an abbey or a priory, and you see some strange holes in the ground or on the evidence, or if you ever see anybody metal detecting on them, if you don't feel comfortable challenging them, ring the police, because it's a crime. It's a crime in progress, and it should warrant a response quite quickly there and then. So
that's fascinating.
And
before you move on to that next one, I wonder how many of these like amateur people who go and buy a metal detector would have the first idea of what you've just said about you're going to commit 2 criminal offences. You're going equipped to commit a crime and criminal damage, and they think they're having a bit of fun. That's enlightening, Johnny. That's very, very useful to bring out for sure.
And if you can't plead ignorance with that, because you should know that you should do your research before. You can't just go anywhere. There's only a few places where you can just go and metal detect. There's some beaches which around the country that you can go on, but some that are owned by local authority or by the National Trust, who owns some beaches, you can't metal detect on them. So you really need to do the research on where you can and can't go, because it's a minefield if you just start metal detecting anywhere, like some people do in the local parks.
See them everywhere.
We had here in Cheshire, so Beeston Castle was targeted by a group of metal detectorists. They found some Iron Age axe heads, which fascinating things. And the way they were caught was when we got some intel to find out who they were, or when we went and did the searches at the properties, we could find little dog tags that had been found when they were searching in parks. So you find the phone number of the owner of the dog that's lost this dog tag. You go and speak to the people and say, "Oh yeah, I used to go and walk this dog in such and such a park," and then they managed to trace down CCTV, catch them metal detector in, and then that's how a good investigation comes together, which is really good. So so it's good. And we've also got another success story was so I'm just opening it, the hoard that was found in Herefordshire.
Right.
So the detectorists were jailed for this, and it was £12 million worth of gold and silver.
Really?
And the closing closing sentence that the judge stated, so that they have not only cheated the landowner but the public out of exceptionally rare and significant coins. You cheated the farmer, his mother, the landowner, and also the public when you committed theft of these items. So if a judge is saying things like that, which is really, really handy, that type of thing needs to be publicised a lot better. So
you're right.
And know not to do it. It's not a victimless crime, and like we've said, the farmer, his mother, the landowner, and also the public. It's
fascinating.
So we'll move to lead theft or metal theft. So still quite a big thing that we see. So metal theft. So in that photo, you've got a lead hopper, which was just stolen from a property in Ludlow. There was 3 of these stolen, which are stunning pieces of craftsmanship, as you can see. But not only were these removed, but the whole roof was removed, and it was done at around 2 o'clock in the morning. This particular property is in the centre of Ludlow, so it's not out in the countryside. It was just done during a weekday, where the majority of people are asleep. Churches, obviously, most churches have lead on the roofs. They're targeted quite often. Lead comes with quite a good price to exchange. Now there are different ways that we're trying to combat this. Like, so you'll see certain heritage organisations are starting to. You can laser in a unique reference number, or you can use forensic marking to mark lead, because it's been tested on there. You can use it, and where we're scrap dealers should be checking for these things, forensic marking kind of thing, before they can shut in, and they should be requesting details of the person who's trying to sell it as well, which is good, because we do visits to scrap dealers quite a bit with local authority, just to check that they are up to date with their records, to make sure that they are doing this. But when they strip these buildings, it affects. It's only usually found out with churches. It's usually the offence happens, and then a few days later, once it's rained, that's when it's discovered, because most churches you can't see onto the main part of the roof. So it's unlikely that you'll notice it. It's only when it's rained. People go into the church and it's either flooded, or you can see that it's damaged the roof. Which in turns, yes, theft of the lead is quite expensive, but then frame of the church and everything, it's just
all that on damage, isn't it? And then it's got to be replaced, and it's labour and time and insurance premiums potentially going up. It's a whole nightmare. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so sad, and it has a massive effect on communities. That, for example, if people still use churches, people still go to church. It's unfortunately it is a decrease in popularity, but people still go. People still get comfort from it, and if people can't go to church, that's really affected their life.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's that how it affects local communities. In some small villages, the church is still very much like it was in medieval times, the main point of that village. People use it as meeting points. They use it as community hall and things like that. If that building is not safe for them to use, it has a dramatic effect on them.
Absolutely.
Again, I think it's potentially seen as victimless, because it's just a building. The building can't talk to give us a statement or anything like that, but the people around it can. One thing I would like to raise your listeners and viewers to be aware of is good old British tradition is, if you're wearing a jacket and a hard hat, you must be there. But quite a lot of the time, unfortunately, we have seen during the day people turn up white vans with the hazard highway maintenance stickers on the back, putting up scaffolding around a church.
Wow.
Spends 2 days sometimes removing the lead off the top. Some of the residents even come out and give the workers, or the thieves, cups of teas and bits of cake and biscuits, and remove the lead, leave, take the scaffolding out and leave. No one thinks any different. And it's not until the residents speak to the local vicar or priest or whoever's in charge of that particular building, saying, "Oh, when are the workers coming back to replace the lead?"
What lead?
Lead.
Exactly.
So it's because some of the religious buildings in the countryside, it doesn't have a resident vicar or priest there all the time, that they work on rotas now, where the different areas that are covered. So there's not always somebody there now. So
Exactly.
it's raising that awareness that if you're not comfortable challenging people,
Cool, you
bosses of
guys.
police, we're more
Yeah.
than happy to do that. So it's
That's a really good point to make,
yeah,
Jono, because going back to something you said a long while back there, that these are organised people in the main, aren't they? So they're not silly, and they'll have probably done their homework and done some bit of surveillance and choose those targets very carefully, knowing that they're very unlikely to get caught for 2 or 3 days. So yeah, that's a great point. Be aware. Don't take the workers at face value, perhaps. It's a very good point to make.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's British tradition to believe people and things like that. It's
True,
very
yeah.
much so. But yeah, it's wising up and
Yeah.
challenging people. It's all about that. So now we've got Operation Spectra, or Spectra, which is graffiti. Now, obviously, graffiti, it's not only visually affects you. It doesn't always you see it, but it's the paint and the ink. What effect is that having on that historical bit of stone? So you can see the photo there of my colleague Ash. That is Chester City walls. So Chester City walls, they're all a scheduled monument, so they're all protected. The spray paint on there, it damages the outer layer effectively. It costs a fortune to remove, and yeah, it just damages it all. So there is a project going at the minute to see how we can trace where the paint has been sold through forensic testing, things like that. So once we can establish that, we can then go back to that supplier and say, how many of these have you sold? Have you got it on CCTV and things like that? So potentially find the culprits that way, which is really good.
Yeah.
And then the other photo there is a Sharpie pen where someone's drawn a face on a gravestone at an abbey, probably done by young people. But this is when education comes into play, where we speak to young people and just affect the effects. It's one of the things that we might be looking with Historic England of doing restorative justice type of things of how your actions, what your actions have done, can affect historical stuff, really. Because it's a gravestone. Why would you want to draw on someone's gravestone? But yeah, maybe it's a sign that the times are changing and people don't think of consequences. I don't know. It's
sure thing. Yeah.
So yeah. So any questions on graffiti?
No, I can see the impact of it, but more importantly, the point you make, whatever that pink sign is there, I can imagine the difficulty of getting that off, because I immediately think jet washing, but that's just going to damage and cause further damage to something that's already however many 100 years old, on top of what the criminals have done. So yeah, it's an absolute nightmare. But again, I guess you want people reporting this to you, don't you? So you can do your checks and gather intel. Yeah.
The more reports we get, the more of an intelligent picture we can build effectively. So it's even if we don't get a positive result out of it, we've got that intel picture that we're building, so we can start to look at, is there a pattern? Can we
exactly
critically
where they're going, what are they doing, patterns and behaviors? Yeah, absolutely.
Can we put officers in that place to prevent another one who's happening type thing? So yeah, so it's all about reporting, really. We need those reports in. So the next thing is Operation Chariott. So antisocial behaviour, off-road off-roading, biking, things like that. So you've got places like I know over in Shropshire you've got Oswestry Hill Fort there, that's currently being used as a bike track. Again, people don't realise, and young people don't realise as well, you riding a bike or a motorbike over that, you are damaging what's underneath the ground. The archaeological objects and the groundworks underneath the ground of a 4x4 or off-road bike, or even a push bike, going over there, it could be damaging what's underneath.
Yeah.
We've got places like Delamere Forest here in Cheshire, lots of official bike tracks, which the official bike tracks are there for a reason. They are maintained and they are so people can use them. You start venturing off and creating your own ones, then not only are you potentially disrupting wildlife, but anything that's under the ground that could be of historical importance, you start digging up to make a jump, or you start riding over it, can damage an ancient trackway or an ancient
exactly that.
or something that's under there. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
No, it's very true. I've had experience of this, Jono, so I won't name the client, but one of my agricultural clients, going back about 3 years now, we discovered in one of the woods, right out of the way, where the guy, I say guys or girls, they built in the woods. It wasn't on a particularly well-walked area, like like a big wooden jump thing. They'd actually modified the woods. They had their own jumps and circuit that had been developed over time. It happened to be reported by a member of the public as it happened. It was weird, but yeah. So the damage and the time and the money and the effort that results is quite frightening. Again, yeah, it's weird what people get up to.
Yeah. Again, you can see. I know there's quite a good example. I think it's potentially over on the East Coast. I don't know, forgive me if I'm wrong, but there was ancient footprints found on a beach, which was recovered by tidal action. And what was happening was people were riding scrambler bikes, off-road bikes over the top of these, which these are thousands, maybe even 1 million years old. These footprints need to be preserved, and if you're riding a bike over them, you're just going to destroy them. There's no way of getting them back. There's literally no way. So it's just, I get people have got a hobby and I love people being out in the countryside. I love it. It's why I'm a rural crime officer. But we've got to respect it.
Yeah, exactly.
People, we see in the news at the minute, there's so many wildfires at the minute, and my colleagues in the fire service are constantly battling wildfires, which is mostly due to people having barbecues, the disposable barbecues. You don't go somewhere with a disposable barbecue with the intention of bringing it home. It's going to be hot, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So you need to seriously think, if you're going out into the countryside, do you really need to have a barbecue?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not, these fires not only disturbing vast areas of countryside, but they're also damaging people's properties, buildings. And if we're looking at heritage crime, there could be a historical monument that it's going over, being targeted or setting fire. There's probably plane wrecks and things like that, like we spoke about earlier. What's happening to them? They're going to be, they've already been through a lot of stress from crashing and being on fire then, but some more fire now. It's exactly thinking about. And then the other couple of priorities that have been set up. So you've got Operation Crucible, which is the theft and trade of historical artifacts. which we see time and time again through various online platforms. People find things and sell things, people steal things and then sell things, making money. So it's controlling that and how we do that as the police. And you've got Operation Vulcan, so fire and arson to historical properties, which unfortunately we see quite a bit of in Cheshire. There are a lot of historical vacant properties which are set on fire.
Yeah.
Whether it's on purpose or by accident, but it's still a historical thing that's left, as fire just devastates everything. And then Operation Birdie, which is not something I know a lot about, but that's linked to marine and coastal areas, protecting shipwreck, because we see people going out diving, looking around shipwrecks, and then they might steal a cannon or something like that from one of our protected wrecks. And cannons, believe it or not, can be worth quite a lot of money. So that's something to be aware of if you're living on the coastline.
Yeah, sure.
I must stress, if you want to learn more about any of these things, then please contact your local police force and ask to speak to the heritage crime team officer, who should be able to point you in the direction, especially over by the coast. I know Devon and Cornwall and Hampshire Police are very, very keen on their marine and coastal offences, so they'll be able to offer you a lot more information than I will. So have you got any questions about those last few slides?
I've got a few bits. Are there any more slides, John? Because I was thinking, I've got a few questions here in my hand. I've been making notes because you brought some fantastic points up that I thought, oh, we need to stress these. So, but I'll leave them until you finish with your slides, and then at the point where you finish with your slides, I'll get rid of those, and there would just be me and you on the screen. So I can do that now. Or
no problem. I've got a few more slides where I'm moving on to how in Cheshire we're looking, how we're combating heritage crime.
Let's do the slides first, John, so I don't steal your thunder, because you might talk about stuff that I've wrote down already. So keep the floor, because this is fascinating, and there's so much stuff coming out here about what a huge subject, and it's really, really interesting. So I think I'm better off leaving you to finish your little bits, then we'll come back. My couple of questions.
No problem. So what am I doing in Cheshire, Ben? So since I've landed, my sergeant Rob Simpson has given me the freedom to work on as much heritage crime projects as I want. I keep saying yes to things which I probably should put things in my back pocket about. But so one of the things that it worked quite well in West Mercia was heritage watch schemes and use of volunteers. So we've got obviously Steve here, who's our heritage crime volunteer, who's brilliant. He comes out with me and we go and visit places, and we're constantly in touch with each other about ideas and stuff, which is great. Which then led me to think, could we have more volunteers within the police who can go out and visit and offer reassurance to our heritage sites in Cheshire? So that could be a potential thing that could be coming forward, where we'll teach these volunteers how to risk assess a building. Now we've got Historic England have got a heritage building risk assessment, which is on their website, which anyone can access. The links at the end of the slides here, but that's a really useful tool. We've got one here in Cheshire that we've just developed, which will be passed out to all the officers who are out all the time, where they can just fill in that risk assessment, and then that copy of that risk assessment comes to me for me to review, or anyone on my team, who we can then do a follow-up visit to go and give some a little bit more information. Now the Heritage Watch schemes, it was launched back in 2019, I believe. How it fell away a little bit, but it's still very much a thing, and we're looking to relaunch that. So this means the way I'm going to be looking at it is already well-established groups of history enthusiasts. So I'm looking at already well-established volunteer groups at various museums, reenactor groups, metal detecting societies, any groups whatsoever who would potentially got an interest in history or want to try and keep an eye on our history, to be our eyes and ears effectively out there. These people visit these places every day, and we've got a good record. We can have a good record from them people of what's happening out there, and they encourage recording things. Something that's really excited me is I'm working with Chester University with a couple of different projects, but the main one we're looking at is the use of 3D scanning and LiDAR equipment and drones to scan historical buildings to prevent and detect crime effectively. So as we were out yesterday actually scanning a vulnerable property in Cheshire, which is just fantastic, and getting to work with a chap called Stuart Ainsworth, who was on Time Team. So
cool.
Growing up as a kid watching Time Team, and now getting to work with one of the archaeologists on there is just brilliant for me, and I'm learning so much. Learning so much, and eventually what we'd like to do is we're doing research on, can we get an app on our works phone where we can 3D scan a piece of stone, a historical stone or anything really, to get a 3D model of it. To, if it's stolen, we can then get that 3D model in there to show what it is, but also almost have it as a fingerprint of a stone to identify it, and then we scan where it's been stolen from and then put it back together like a jigsaw, which some of the evidence and examples that we're getting is blowing my mind a little bit. It's just absolutely fantastic, some of the stuff we've worked. And Historic England are excited as well, because it's looking like we're taking that to the next level. I think eventually I'd like to be able to get to a stage where if we get a case to court, we'll be able to put the judge, jury, magistrate, whoever else in a VR headset to visit the crime scene and walk around. That, I think, yes, you can have videos and you can have photographs of the damage or of the crime scene, but to be able to walk through it would just be fantastic.
That'd be awesome. Absolutely.
And then also, again, a little bit of fun is developing some education videos. So I'll go out to different sites and I'll be meeting with experts and people like that just to discuss heritage crime and what it is and how it affects that site and things like that. So that's kind of some of the new ways that we're trying to combat it, which is fascinating, really. So the next slide we've got is just a little bit more information on Heritage Watch. So I was wrong, it was launched in 2011, not 2019, so apologies for that. But it's basically community support to police the past, effectively. So it's like I said, getting the eyes and ears out there, and it just will help us reduce crime and antisocial behaviour, hopefully, at these sites. The more calls we're getting in, the more likely we're able to put in patrols and officers in that area, because obviously we're very much looking at hotspot policing at the minute. So we're looking at where crimes are happening to almost prevent things. Apologies, it's the fire alarm, if you can hear that. Just
okay. Is it test day?
Apology, yes, must be.
Oh, that's all right. That's cool.
but yeah, like I said, so it's just encouraging that report suspicious incidents really, and receive and cascade information out. They receive information from us about latest trends, and we hopefully receive information back on what they've found out. And then just a little bit more about volunteers.
Excuse me.
And what watch schemes is.
Yeah.
And then we've got an example about the 3D scanning. So you're working with the University of Chester, and this is just the use of drone filming a site, which is just fascinating, really useful.
Isn't it just? Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff that.
Stuart showed me yesterday how to scan a 3D model using a phone, and I did it, and it was done within an hour. And I had a 3D model of a historical piece of stone, which I had on my phone, which was just so good. And that, once we're able to do that for historical stone, who knows what other types of crime it can be used for. So we'll see how it goes, but it's certainly traveling at a good length of time at the moment. And then the risk assessing. So with the risk assessment, we're going to be able to identify which are the most at risk heritage sites in Cheshire. So we can then spend a bit more time. There's another reason for having the 3D models and scans of these sites is, if anything does happen to them, we've then got a record of what it looked like in that period of time. Once we've got it, if we get someone to successfully prosecute them, quite often we'll see that an order is passed that the building needs to be rebuilt, or we've got that model there to be able to prove that this is how it looked, and this is how it should look when it's being rebuilt. And then there's your links. So Historic England's website, some really good information on there, some good statistics that you can read, some real good guidance on how to protect heritage sites. So there's lots of good things on there. And then your archaeologists, chartered institutes, their special interest group, which anyone can join, if you've got an interest in history, and if you're an archaeologist or someone professional. I'm a member, and you get lots of good information coming through from them about
absolutely brilliant. So what I'm going to do, John, I'm going to close that, bring me and you front and center. See that's been absolutely fascinating, generally speaking. So I've got how were you for time? Have I got time to ask a couple of questions?
Far away.
I'd made a few notes as we've been going, and what's fascinated me, and I know this is, I do a lot of stuff in rural crime, but you've enlightened me today. I was unaware of just how wide a subject this is. It's been really interesting. And I know people are going to love this. What I particularly liked, though, Jono, was towards the end of those slides, the proactiveness that's going on. So, there's a lot of stuff going on with all the watch groups and the volunteers, and then the 3D scanning. And I want to pick up on a link. We mentioned this at the start, and I just want to make sure because I don't quite get it myself. So I want to make sure everyone that what's the link between, we've mentioned Mark Harrison a number of times at Historic England.
Yeah.
Can you just enlighten me and by default everyone else? How does that work? What's that role within Historic England? Is it a police role, or is it a separate entity to the police altogether? And how does that work?
Yeah. So Historic England is the governing body. So it's the government body for heritage, all things historical. Now, before English Heritage was the main body, But then a few years ago, they split into two sections. So you have historic England and then English heritage. English heritage is very much the charity, and they're the guardians of who look after the building and sites that they have. Historic England are, like I said, the main governing body now. So they are set up by the government, who are in place to look after everything to do with heritage in England. So Mark's role is his official title, which I'll make sure I get it right.
Yeah.
Because he's no doubt going to watch this and pick up on anything that I've.
He will. He'll have you if you get it wrong.
So he is head of heritage crime, and he's part of the legal and governance section of Historic England. So he works very closely with a chap called Paul Jeffrey, who does a very similar role. He's an archaeologist, and he focuses very much on the marine stuff as well as heritage crime in general.
I've got it. I understand that. Yeah, and would they be involved in prosecution of crimes as well as
they very much assist with us. So we have regular meetings. So any live cases that we have ongoing, we'll have meetings with them to update them how the investigation's going. He will offer advice. Mark probably won't mind me saying this, but he is an ex-police officer himself. So he's got that idea of how a police investigation works, and he can offer potentially support with funding for forensic testing, and any advice or potentially impact statements if they need to be provided by the historical and so yes, that's how they assist, and we work very much. He's sits on the National Police Chief Council's group as well, so he's one of the chairman members of it. Who
fascinating. My other question, we've kind of covered them off, but I just want to make sure I've fully understood it. One thing you went through particularly in depth, which was really good, was I had a question here. So, what is heritage crime? We've clearly got that now, and that's part of your talk. I found particularly useful because I know it's going to open people's eyes as to how wide it is. You know, covering all of the things like the graffiti and the theft, and particularly the bit that I thought, oh God, I wouldn't have thought of that, was the metal detecting and the going equipped offence and the criminal damage. That was really, really fascinating. So thanks for all those. But one thing that's often, and you've really drilled this home really, really clearly, one thing that will often be overlooked when someone nicks a headstone or someone does some graffiti, or it's not a victimless crime, is it? There's impact, and often impacts on a national scale, because some of the stuff that we're talking about here, you can't replace it. It's been there, let's say, since 1066 or whatever. You can't replace that kind of stuff. So it's really, really important. Jono, is there any are there any points that you want to cover? I'm going to bring it to a close now and then put you out a shot and do my quick wash up. Is there anything that you'd like to say? You always have the last word before we close you off. Is there anything you want to reiterate or stress, or a key message? If there's a takeaway message for people who watch this going forward, what would that message be?
It's just help us protect our heritage, really. Once it's gone, it's gone. And like I've said throughout the chat, it belongs to all of us. And if we're not protecting it, who's going to? Anything, if you feel that something is not right, or it's something wrong's happening, that feeling's there for a reason, and it's usually right. So report it. I'd always advise, don't feel silly about reporting the slightest thing, because us as a police, we'd much rather know about it rather than it to happen and then not know about it, and then we're having to play catch up. So please report stuff to us. We generally do want to know about it, and you won't be wasting your time. Honestly, you need to know. But please, hopefully, you've taken something from my talk about what heritage crime is. It is happening. It is on the rise, unfortunately, and by improving people's knowledge about it, and just knowing about it is a win for me. So thank you everyone for listening, really.
Thank you. What I'm going to do then, Jono, is going to put you out of shot. Please don't disappear. I'm literally going to wind up. It will take me less than a minute, and then I'll come back to you once the recording started. So whilst we're still recording, I want to express my thanks to Jono. Jono, thank you sincerely. That's been a really, really interesting talk. Thanks for the preparation that you did in putting the slides together and really explaining with great clarity what it is that you and the crime team at Cheshire Police do, how you go about your day-to-day business, but more importantly, how it all fits together and how you're advancing and you're keeping it moving and you're looking at new technologies and all that kind of stuff. It's been fascinating. And I don't say that lightly. I genuinely mean that. It's been really, really interesting. So, John, stay where you are for the time being. I am going to just put you out of shot and do my wash up. So that's Jono's out of shot now. Just to reiterate to Jono himself, thank you very much for sparing the time and giving us a fascinating talk today, but also to the Police Force Cheshire Constabulary on a wider basis. Thank you for sparing the time, letting Jono participate today. It's done you guys proud. It's brilliant. It was a fantastic talk and really, really informative. In closing, I've got a couple of things to mention. It would be remiss of me, as I do on all of these little streams that we do, is to talk about rural crime on a wider scale, whether it's heritage crime, whether it's wildlife crime, or whether it's crimes on farms or landed estates or castles. Rural crime is a huge issue across the United Kingdom. Organised, well-funded, switched-on criminals repeatedly violating people, their spaces and their equipment and their livelihoods. And the role of stopping that doesn't just sit with the police. The police do a fantastic job. And as Jono's alluded to there, the way that we can get the police to resource and respond and hopefully prevent and protect is as if we liaise and communicate with them. So if you see something that's not right, if you're a little bit suspicious, as Jono said, about some scaffolding on a church or some holes in the ground where people might have been doing metal detecting, tell the police. Jono said there very clearly, they need to hear about stuff, and they don't mind hearing about stuff that ultimately turns out not to be a crime. It enables the police to gather information, build up intelligence databases, share that intelligence with others like Heritage England, the watch groups, and all of these other groups that have been mentioned today. And everybody working together, we have a better chance of reducing the amount of rural crime in our communities and on our heritage in this particular case. So finally, then, my last word is, you can see it tickering across the bottom there. There's a course. It's an online course. It's a brief, punchy, factual course. And after this chat that I've had with Jono today, that course is going to change. And I'm going to increase the content relating to heritage crime. It's mentioned in the course, but Jono's talk has really opened my eyes to the breadth of what is going on out there when it comes to heritage crime, but more importantly, what the police are doing about it, the use of technology in groups and 3D mapping and risk assessing our heritage across the UK. Some wonderful stuff going on there. So I would urge you, if you don't mind, ruralcrimes.com, go and have a look there. There's all sorts of bits and bobs on that website, but there's a course that you can take to teach you all about rural crime and rural crime prevention. And in a few days' time, it's going to have a bigger section on heritage crime prevention as well. So that's Richard Wade. I'm going to end the recording there. Please subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and if you feel it's been useful, if you're happy with what Jono's done there, which is a fantastic job on behalf of himself and Cheshire Constabulary, then make a few comments. Thank you very much, and